welcome to me talking about movies, about what movies I watched this month. I think I'm gonna call this Yap Month, or I don't know yet. This is inspired by Karsten request. I'm doing this because this is just an outlet for me to talk about movies I've seen last month, because I watch a lot of movies and I like to talk about movies. So starting out my October, I watched Marley and Me: The Puppy Years, which is a sequel to Marley and Me. This definitely fits into the same categories as sequels that have no continuity with the originals. So American Psycho 2, Jingle All the Way 2, it's in the same kind of vein as those. Not good, not really worth your time. Then I watched some Wes Anderson shorts. These were mainly just advertisements or promotional material, mainly from Moonrise Kingdom. I watched Do You Like to Read and Cousin Ben Trooper screening. They were fine, they were good. I also watched Come Together, which was an ad. All of them were fine. Then I watched Age of Ultron, which I was excited going into it because I have heard a lot of good things about Age of Ultron from my friends, and I was kind of disappointed. At a point, it kind of just looked like CGI soup, but yeah, it was okay, I guess. Then I rewatched Joker. I just would rather watch King of Comedy or Taxi Driver. I still enjoyed it. It's not an awful watch, and I think there is some interesting things that can be gotten out of this, for sure. And then I watched Joker Folie, Deux, and this one I'm probably going to talk about on the podcast, but this is a musical courtroom drama, super villain hero movie, and it's very interesting to go with those genres, but unfortunately I don't think it succeeds in them. Yeah, it's not really a great musical. There's some songs that are good, but the visuals don't really match the dynamics of the song all too much, and they can kind of come off feeling all the same. Then I watched The Front Room for the podcast as well, and this one was unexpected, to say the least. I watched the trailers for this and I was just kind of expecting a bad horror movie, and I got that, but there was a lot of poopy in this movie. I don't think I'm gonna say much more on that. I would say check this one out. Yeah, it's definitely a good laugh. I watched The Pacifier. This is one that I've known about for a while, and oh boy, is it a movie. There is so much happening in here that, like, I don't know if it should be happening, and it's kind of insane in that regard because of just the chaotic energy that is happening with whatever the story beats are in this. There's a kind of almost military propaganda, you could maybe say, since he's a CIA member, and it starts with like a CIA chase, and then it like divulged in the back half. There are just more bizarre CIA moments, like when the neighbors are ninjas. This was definitely bizarre. Then I watched Le Samouraï. This one is a 1967 French movie, and I really enjoyed it. I felt like I got a lot out of this movie for sure. Highly check it out. I just loved the craftsmanship of it, just the pacing. It reminded me of David Fincher's The Killer, and honestly, I think this is better. It's kind of the same premise of an assassin who kills for a living, but something happens and he kind of fumbles the job, and we kind of reap the consequences. So it's the same kind of story, but I really found this one a lot more entertaining, and I got a lot more out of it. Then I watched Birth of a Nation. This was a movie that was picked by Rosa, and it is a movie. It is Experience, a 3-hour-long silent film. It's noted as being revolutionary in filming regards, and I really found some of it to be very interesting, and some shots were just beautiful, but the subject matter at hand is disingenuous, I would maybe say, and just wrong. I don't know what to say that already hasn't been said before. Then, after Birth of a Nation, I definitely needed a pick-me-up, so I watched one of my favorite films, The French Dispatch. This is a movie that I freaking love. It means so much to me, and I'm glad that I rewatched it for like the 5th or 6th time. Then I watched After Hours. This one was also a movie that I love, kind of getting that New York nightlife. I just love what is happening. The story is interesting. Can it be avoided? Yeah. I think there's some silly bits, definitely like the barkeeper asking to get keys even though he can lock up. It's convoluted. There's aspects that could be avoided, or just kind of plot holes, I guess you could call them. Nonetheless, I still really enjoyed this movie a lot. Then I watched The Dark Crystal, which is a movie that I haven't seen before. I haven't seen Labyrinth either. But the puppetry in this is insane, to say the least. There are some puppets that feel like they've been kind of deserted. You have the Skeksis, and they are so incredibly cool looking puppets. I loved the puppet design of them. The main characters kind of fell in comparison to the design of the Skeksis. The puppetry is definitely the strong point of this movie. Then I watched A Grand Day Out. I believe this is the first Wallace and Gromit short, and I enjoyed it for this iconic duo's first feature. This is really good. It's pretty well realized and formed off the bat. Not a lot has like really changed about these characters, I would say. Then I watched my first John Waters film, Female Trouble, and I absolutely loved this movie so much so that I went and bought the Criterion of this. This has been on my mind rent-free since I saw it last month. This movie is just insane in the best of ways. So I'm so glad that I got to see this in theaters with a bunch of people. It was truly a great experience, and I'm very happy about that. Then I watched The Apprentice. This movie was good. I liked it. I thought there were some points where I wish it went a little bit further with its messaging. There were some low-hanging fruit moments for sure, like the Make America Great bit, along with like, you're getting fat, you're getting oranger by Ivanka. So there were some of those aspects that I didn't really like, but overall I thought this was a enjoyable film, and I'm happy that it's here. Then I watched It's What's Inside. This is the feature film from Greg Jardin. We talked about this on the podcast. Really loved the editing. I would say check this one out. It's on Netflix. I definitely didn't know anything going into this, and I definitely think that made my experience more enjoyable. So I'm not going to say too much more about this. But yeah, check it out. Then I watched Saturday Night, and it was kind of disappointing, to say the least. I was excited. This has some actors that I absolutely love. And to see it kind of just be average is kind of just saddening to see. There's some edgy jokes. The time kind of thing about it doesn't really work. It kind of falls apart near the end. I just wish this was better, and I'm just a little disappointed by it. Then I watched The Duel for the podcast. This is Steven Spielberg's feature-length film, and it was really interesting to see where Spielberg started, especially for this being a TV film that then changed into a feature film. Was really interesting to see. It was really fun to watch, kind of very simple premise, but yeah, there was a lot to chew on for sure, and I'm glad I watched it. Then I watched Serial Killing for Fun and Profit. This was also for the podcast. This is made by a fellow YouTuber, Flesh Simulator. For a first documentary, I thought it was fine. I found it to be somewhat interesting. It was along the lines of walking the fence of true crime, kind of, and I thought it was interesting in the subject matter. There are some parts that I found to not really be necessary, to say the least, and some of the audio on the guests was not great. There was one where it was just on the left side of the speaker. So overall, though, I thought it was still a pretty good first documentary. Then I watched The Thing for our Halloween episode of the podcast. It's a really great movie. It's probably John Carpenter's best. I feel like if you haven't seen it yet, somehow go see it. There's so much film discourse on this movie. Really great. Then I watched the 2011 The Thing movie, and it's not that great. Biggest thing is they opted for CG over real puppets, and it doesn't look great. Everything looks like a Resident Evil boss. Then I watched Lost in Translation, and I'm super glad I watched this when I watched it, because this is a movie that helped me where I currently am right now in life and with my thought process about things. So I'm very happy I watched this, and I got a lot out of it. Then I watched Twisters from this year, and I thought it was fine. It was enjoyable. I didn't really get a lot out of it. I feel like this is a fun summer movie, though. Same kind of tier as The Fall Guy. Yeah, it was fine. And then I watched Shaun of the Dead. In the coming week of Halloween, I kind of realized I didn't really watch a lot of Halloween movies this month. So I kind of played catch up with that. Starting with that is Shaun of the Dead. I thought this movie was really good. I thought that Simon Pegg was really charming in this. And I thought that this was a really good start for Edgar Wright. Then I watched Us. This has also been on my mind to watch ever since it came out, and I thought it was fine. I was very interested in it when it came out in 2019, but I'm just kind of left a little disappointed, but nonetheless, it was fine. I really liked Tim Heidecker in this. He was probably one of my favorite parts of the movie. Then I got to see a live score to Nosferatu, which was really great. This was my first live score for a silent film that I've seen, and to say it was magical is an understatement. The movie is fine. It's not anything I'm crazy about. Then I watched movie 43 for the podcast. I recommended this one, and it was not great. It was pretty bad, honestly. Really unfunny, really stupid. I think it is more tolerable than a Freebird and Seltzer movie, which isn't saying much. Then I rewatched The Substance. This was for the podcast, and I was not super excited or stoked to see this again in theaters, but I was proven wrong, and I actually really, really enjoyed this a second time in theaters. I got a lot more out of it, and I'm definitely glad that I rewatched it. I'm just disappointed my theaters did not have as much people as it should have. Then I watched Conclave and thought it was fine. It didn't really do too much for me. I'm gonna throw around the O word when I talk about this movie, Oscar bait, because that's what it kind of feels like. The twist in this feels somewhat unnecessary and very strange. Just still figuring out why it was even in here. We'll see what happens at these Oscars, but yeah, I don't really have too much to say on this one. Then I watched Rap World, which was great. I enjoyed it a lot. This is a Connor O'Malley documentary. Super of the time. Really captures 2009 in like middle of nowhere suburbs. I thought it was really funny, and I also really enjoyed the pacing within this movie. I also really enjoyed the characters within this. Yeah, it's free on YouTube, so I would say check this out. Then I watched The Florida Project. This was directed by Shaun Baker, and I was preparing to see Nora, so I wanted to get at least one of Shaun Baker's movies under my belt beforehand, because he is a director that I've been meaning to watch some of his movies for a while. This was a very real movie, and I really enjoyed it. It really just felt so real. This is a crazy comparison that I am going to throw. It felt almost like Zone of Interest in the way that we looked at these characters, where we kind of just watched these characters at a distance and we kind of just observed them almost. It is definitely a crazy comparison to throw out. Just really good and a heartfelt movie. The only thing that I didn't really like was the ending. The last 30 seconds I could have just done without. Then I watched Piece by Piece, and I thought it was silly. I kind of enjoyed it more than I thought I would. I saw this like promotional material, and I was kind of just like, okay, buddy. Really weird. Wasn't expecting it when I first saw it, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was, I thought it was fine. I am definitely very glad that I got proven wrong by this movie. Also, definitely crazy to see that Lego racism was a part of this. Blew me away. Was not expecting that at all. Just, what the fuck? Then I watched Venom: The Last Dance in theaters, and this was an experience for sure. This is a crazy movie with crazy hijinks. Doesn't really get there until like 30 minutes in, where I was just like, okay, what the fuck is going on anymore? Just insane. The pacing is just insane. The rules that they set for this movie make no sense. Just whatever is happening has just left the writing room floor and has just manifested its own free will. I don't know what is happening. And then closing out my month, I watched the Rocky Horror Picture Show. This was my first time seeing it, and I really enjoyed it. I did not see it at the theater, where people go kind of crazy in the theater for it. I do hope I get to see it at one point in the theater, for sure, because I think it would be a fun experience, to say the least. But I thought this was great. Really had a good time watching this. I really liked the music. Tim Curry was great. Everyone else's performance was also really good. That's what I watched this month in October. Thanks for watching. This is just kind of something that I wanted to do because I just kind of like talking about movies. And this is a nice little outlet to kind of recollect my thoughts for all of the movies that I watched each month. So yeah, thanks for watching. Yeah.